This is the Brett Snodgrass podcast. This is the Brett Snodgrass podcast. Thank you guys for joining me today. I got a great guest for you today, Johnny Sirpilla. I'm going to talk about Johnny here in a little bit, but before I do, go over to irondeep.com. We got our men's retreat. It's called the Men's Awakening coming up September the 25th. I got 4 spots left, guys. 4 spots left. It's going to be maxed out of 30 guys in the Rocky Mountains in Timber Lakes, Utah, under one roof. We rent out the largest log cabin in the world, 26,000 square feet in the Rocky Mountains, 30 guys max. Got 4 spots left. Go over to irondeep.com and check it out. Also, check out our YouTube channel, Iron Deep, on YouTube to get all the podcasts. And we got some new videos. Just came out with one last week called Humility, the Greatest Virtue. Check out Humility, the Greatest Virtue. Now, I'm going to introduce you to Johnny Sirpilla. Who is Johnny Sirpilla? He is a legend in the RV industry. He owns many businesses. He's also the founder of Encourage LLC. He's the new author of Life is Hard, But I'll Be Okay: The Power of Hope, Emerging Through Pain, and Learning to Live with Gratitude. Johnny, he's a successful man. This guy has it all together. He knows a lot of people. He is the pinnacle of success, but he went through a very deep personal tragedy in his life, and he talks about that in his book, Life is Hard, But I'll Be Okay. He talks about it on this episode and how through the pain, it helped him emerge as a better leader, as a better man, as a better follower of Christ, as a better husband and a father. And that is why he has started his organization, Encourage LLC, which encourages healthy living, healthy leadership, healthy investments, and healthy adoption. So I'm going to let him talk about that here in a little bit. Now here is Mr. Johnny Sirpilla. What's going on, Johnny?
How you doing, Brett?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Thank you so much for being on the Brett Snodgrass podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, just super excited just to chat with you, pick your brain. We have mutual friends in the RV industry. I live in northern Indiana, which I heard, I don't know if this is true, Johnny, but they said that the 3 counties up here in northern Indiana, like 70% or 80% of manufacturing RVs are in this area. Is this true, or did someone make that up because they're from
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. It's the mecca of the United States. I mean, there is production sites out there across the country as well, but nowhere like Elkhart County in that area.
Oh, man, that's cool. So I'm living right in that area, Fort Wayne, Indiana, and you were born in to the RV industry. You're second generation, right? Your dad had this RV industry. Talk to us about just kind of how you grew up in that and your business a little bit to get it started.
I will. So yes, I was born into it. My dad was one of the pioneers in the industry in the late 1950s. And so I grew up, I was born in the mid 60s and, was born and raised into the industry. The company, my dad's dealership was older than me. Did every job in the dealership growing up. And then when it came time for college, my dad told me I was going to be an accounting major. He really wanted me to understand accounting and finance and to never rely on anyone else to explain the P&L to me. So I did that, went off to undergrad, and I chose my undergraduate degree, or he chose my undergraduate degree. I got to choose my graduate degree, but came back to the industry in my family business a few years after college. I worked in Chicago for a bit until I got the phone call to come home. And, I loved working in the family business, had so many family members, great people there, a generation of people that had been there that were my bosses when I was a kid. And then when I was about 36 years old, Camping World approached me as one of the first acquisitions as they were doing a national roll-up strategy. And I sold my company to Camping World, and then ended up becoming president and chief business development officer, and had a 15-year run there with them until my 50th birthday. We did our IPO, and then I felt I was old enough to choose what Johnny wanted to do the rest of his life. So that's what I did.
No, that's quite the story. So a personal question to you is, what was it like kind of had this family business, and did you feel like you were forced to kind of take this over to walk into this? Did you ever feel a lot of pressure from your family to take into this? Was this something that Johnny wanted to do? Talk to us about that.
I never felt pressure at all, Brett. My parents were just so good and giving and gracious. But there was an expectation. I think it, more unspoken. My dad always said he was so surprised when I came back. Yet he did call me and asked me to come back. So, you know, it was, it was really an honor. It was probably not an industry that I would have chosen for myself. I'm not a RVer. I've never enjoyed the lifestyle, but what I really enjoyed is I respected the lifestyle, and I loved the idea of families having their recreation time together. And I love serving people in that way, that, you know, you work so hard for a couple of weeks, a year of vacation, and then you have an opportunity that we have to serve them, to give them that quality family time. I was raised in a really loving family and a large extended Italian family. And so that part was really cool to me. Doing it myself, RVing, I really wasn't into much, but the idea of all being together and helping serve others, that's what really worked for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. I think every family at one time buys some sort of an RV. We did our RV about a year ago, bought an RV. We used it a couple of times, and it's one of those things, maybe it's like either a boat or an RV. The best day is when you buy it. The best day is when you sell it, right? But I'll tell you, some of our best times is there's something about being outside in the nature with your family, piling into this RV, kind of being all over each other and trying to figure life out, doing bikes. It's just the closeness of it, just bringing the family together is... yeah, just nothing like it. So,
RVs keep the family together. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, definitely. So, kind of moving forward, you grew up in the RV industry, sold your family company to Camping World, and served in the leadership, I think even as a past president, in that for a while. But now you have written a book and you kind of transition your life. So I want to take a step back because you had some trials, obviously, in your life. I read your book, which is called Life is Hard, but I Will Be Okay. And I was expecting Johnny Sirpilla. I was going to open up this book and all about business. And there was a lot of lessons in there about leadership and about business, but it was honestly a lot about your personal life and your personal grief and a tragedy that you and your wife had. So let's just talk about this a little bit. In your late 20s, something happened. So tell our audience about that.
So we were both just thriving in our careers. My wife was a rock star in the pharmaceutical industry back in the 90s, in the early 90s. And we were ready to start a family, and years went by and we were unsuccessful at that. Through a lot of medical intervention, we did end up pregnant with triplets, and we had 2 sons and a daughter, Nicholas, Mary, and Peter. But unfortunately, they all passed away as infants. And so our world was shattered, Brett. The darkness that we felt, it was overwhelming. The time after the funeral, returning to work, the whole experience really transformed us. And we have so much gratitude as we look back for it. You know, when my wife and I have talked about the idea of course, we wish for a different outcome. Of course, we wish that Nicholas, Mary, and Peter lived. But we would not wish the experience away, that it never happened, because we don't really know who we are as a couple, as a family. The later kids that followed, knowing their older brothers and sister that passed before them, we don't know us as a family unit without Nicholas, Mary, and Peter. So we would never ask for that to have never happened to us. But we were fortunate in so many ways through that tragedy that we changed it from a tragedy to a blessing. And then it really led into my business life because it changed my heart. I shouldn't say changed my heart. It further formed my heart, because I was never a yeller screamer kind of a leader, but it made me more of a compassionate leader. It made me understand and be very respectful of what my employees, my associates, what their home lives could be like, and what am I doing in my business to create a great environment for them to go home and be the best for their families? Or am I creating an environment that is so stress producing for them that they end up going home and taking out that aggression and stress on their families? And so it shaped me in a lot of ways for good. And I'm very thankful for our journey, as hard as it was, to end up with the 3 kids that we have.
Yeah. Again, I was like reading that, and it was just that gut wrenching, just to go through that experience. I was kind of walking in that experience as you wrote it in your book, Life is Hard, but I'll Be Okay. And I want to ask you, I mean, you were starting to come into your career you were a leader, had this family business. Typically in your late 20s or early 30s, mid 30s, 40s, you're kind of in that season of your success, and you were highly successful. But you kind of had this tragedy at home, which eventually kind of transformed your heart and gave you that compassion for your employees. But off the bat, I mean, was there a time period, a season of just kind of walking back into your business? Because again, you take your personal experiences into your business world. What was that like for you? Was there just a season of numbness, darkness? Your business didn't matter as much as it did a year before. Like, what was that like for you, kind of walking back into your work life after having this tragedy at home?
It was really a season of awakening. After the funeral, we took some time, went down south to Florida, let my wife rest. And then, as we came back, and we were gone for a few weeks, and then came back to after both of us resume our careers, I really realized then all the things that I saw wrong with my own company. I saw it through a different lens. So there was that awakening, Brett, where I recognized that I'm in such a bad place mentally, maybe a place that some of my employees are in that same place mentally for what's going on in their home lives, that I realized that the disrespect that was being shown to each other as coworkers, not a genuine, authentic customer experience environment where we can just create raving fans. There's a great book of customer experience called Raving Fans that we studied and read as a company, many, many years ago. Because I think for me, I was at such a dark place that I needed work to be more significant and uplifting to help me when I went home. And so it gave me the clarity of how I'm going to lead. And I'm not just going to lead to the bottom line performance or the top line performance, but I'm going to lead to the individual performance. And when I started doing that, I was able to see just a rise in our company. Our sales nearly tripled. The money falling to the bottom line was far, far greater than it had ever been before. The culture, the customer experience was so different. And then, Camping World came knocking on the door, for an acquisition, and they were very generous to me in that deal. And so many blessings came out of that time and that awakening. And so that's really how I saw that transition of going from darkness to light.
I love that term, awakening. Just kind of having that awakening moment. And it just sounds like you really had that compassion. You started to really care about people, whether it was your employees, people that worked for you, or whether it was people buying products from you. And it just sounded like your view of it's just starting to see people as people. And they're not just a number, they're not just someone working for you, but they're a person, and they have a home life. And I love what you said. It's like, you can have this work life, this culture in your work that you can give them to go home, and it's going to give them energy to pour into their family, to love their family more. Or vice versa, it can be so stressful, they'll come in and be just quick to yell, quick to snap at their loved ones as well. And would you agree with that? It just gave you that eyes, that lens to see people as human beings, right?
For sure, Brett. And, I have to say that, God did bless me with, I think, a kind heart and a compassionate heart. So I didn't go from, this rough and gruff guy to all of a sudden, a kinder version. That I was pretty consistent with. But I think, again, it was the awareness in my head of seeing everything come together. Because when you think about a greater home life, that you carry that mind and heart into work, gives a greater work life. And then you carry that circle back to home, right? And it's a circle. Mm-hmm. Because when you think about work-life balance, I always say it's just life. And, it's life at home and life at work. And if you're a really bad guy at home, you're likely a bad guy at work. And so I just felt a responsibility then for the 10 hours or so that I might have somebody at work how was I feeding their soul and the culture? How was I allowing their manager or their coworkers to treat each other that fed their soul to go back home? Because, I started thinking about the hand that we as employers and leaders have in people's home lives. And if you want to accept that title as president or vice president or manager, director, foreman, whatever that is, supervisor, you got to realize that, you're supervising someone's work life that flows into their home life. And if you don't want that responsibility, I think you need to get out of that role. Because if you're just doing it for the self-glorifying purposes of your own paycheck, that's not leadership.
Yeah. I love that. Well, let's just talk about this leadership, because you have this organization now called Encourage LLC, and I think you're on this mission. You've repurposed yourself to encourage people, to encourage healthy living, to encourage leadership, to encourage investment, and to encourage adoption. So let's just start with this new organization. Kind of what brought this about? So like, you're in the RV industry pretty much your entire life. Now you're on this mission and to encourage others in these. So,
our IPO at Camping World happened on my 50th birthday. It really was a blessed day. It was on a Friday, October 7th, in 2016. And I was hearing on my heart, literally on the New York Stock Exchange floor, we're ringing the bell, all that excitement. And I'm hearing, you got to go. It's time to go. And I got to the airport 6 hours early. I thought it was some anxiety about my youngest son was a high school quarterback, thinking about getting home for Friday night lights. And as I'm sitting at the airport, I keep hearing it again. It's time to go. And I recognized that day that it was on my heart that it's time to leave the company. And it was the most selfish decision I've ever made in my life, to walk away from people I loved and cared about in a professional setting, to just go explore what's going to happen in my 50s. And so I was praying on the verse from Thessalonians 5:11, which is, so encourage one another and lift each other up, just as in fact you are doing. And I saw that affirmation, that just as in fact you are doing. And I thought, I do that. I do encourage people. I love encouraging people. That really gets me excited to see that I can maybe take something dark and make it light for someone and to encourage them. And so that became the name of my company. And then I started focusing on the things that are really important to me. And so, first it was the investments, and I started investing in companies that I believed in their mission and their purpose. And, I'm a self-funded small family office. So I use my own money to go invest in companies that I think I can make a difference in. I believe in what they're doing. And so I've really been blessed with probably 20 different companies now that I have involvement in and ownership. And I love that side of just my entrepreneurial mind. Then there was the healthy living side, and some of those brands and some of those companies cross over into that space, in the healthcare space. And, I'm really blessed to be partners with an icon in the health insurance industry, Larry Dust, from Key Benefit Administrators, that has nearly 3 million lives under management. And so we have some great products, and I get to work closely with Larry and referring him out to companies that he changes organizations' lives, have 6 patents that are proven to get employees healthier while driving down the cost of healthcare. And so, I'd love to spread that message to more people. And so through my website, people can reach out to me and I can make those introductions. And then, beyond that, I started thinking about, encouraging adoption. One of my kids is adopted. I've always said I don't remember which one is adopted, but I've got a file that proves it from the courts. And I love talking about adoption as an alternative to an unplanned pregnancy. It's just a beautiful gift that we were given, by a birth mother who chose not to parent. And well, I shouldn't say that. She was a mother, and she is a mother, and she chose to place her baby in a loving environment that was better for that child. And she thought of our son before she thought of herself. And she made an amazing decision, and that changed our lives. And so I love talking to pregnancy support agencies, anyone I can that wants to talk about the topic of adoption. I love that opportunity. And so, all of that kind of led then to, me getting to the point of saying, I got to put this down on paper. God just had it on my heart about writing a book and telling our story and trying to give, people hope and see resilience and reframing thoughts. We spent a lot of time in therapy in those tough years, and really blessed to share that message.
No, I love that. So I encourage leadership, guys, healthy living, leadership, investment, and adoption. So encourage LLC, Johnny. What do you guys kind of do? Do you just kind of share this message, encouraging other people in these certain areas? Is there some consulting, some coaching? You have the book, obviously, that people can read. You have your website, you're on podcasts. But is this a sharing of an awareness of these different areas? Or if someone's interested, man, I want all these areas and find out more information, what does that look like?
So encourage leadership, the one I didn't touch on, that's really, my public speaking arm there, certainly the books in that, all the board work that I do for public companies, private companies, not-for-profits, and then consulting. So the psychologist, Dr. Barbara Fordyce, that we saw when Nicholas, Mary, and Peter died, we got so close with her because we had that many sessions that she and I have formed a partnership together. And so we work with companies on mindfulness and really reframing thoughts of employees and leadership to steer companies in the right direction. And so we love to tag team that. She brings all of the psychological data and facts to the table. And then, as she says, I bring that to life with, 30 plus years of, large company and small company leadership.
I love that. So I want to dive into that, and then I want to talk about adoption a little bit, but just kind of that thought leader, that mindfulness. And I'll tell you, I've owned a business for 15 plus years now, and some days I feel like, hey, I'm equipped, I'm ready to lead, and I'm ready to go. And some days I'm like, you know what, I am not adequate to lead at all. Like, my mind is jacked up. Do you have any tips that you use as you're constantly leading? Because sometimes it's just a lot. It's heavy on you because you're always leading all the time. And sometimes, some days you just don't maybe have it in you. So is there any tips that you kind of get yourself ready to lead, to encourage, to keep pouring into people? Talk to us about that.
Absolutely. So, I was blessed to, lead and be on the executive team. We had, north of 10,000 employees. So, you were on stage a lot, right? Whether you're doing store visits in the corporate office, your presence is known, and people have an expectation of, people in a variety of roles, and there's clear expectations. For me, as a guy with anxiety, diagnosed anxiety, Brett, I'm a worrier. I worry about things that I don't need to. I worry about things that I do need to.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're not all irrational thoughts. A lot of them are very founded, and I have history based on why I have those thoughts. And sometimes one sneak in that I don't have to think about. So, you asked for some tips. A couple things come to mind. First of all, one of the most impactful things that I've ever read, I was reading a book that researchers were out looking for the 100 happiest people in the world. And those 100 happy people could define their happiness on finances, on charitable work, on health, on giving, on family, however they define happiness. And they all shared one thought and one common theme. And that was the concept of don't believe everything that you think. I'm going to repeat that. Don't believe everything that you think. And when I have a thought in my head and my head isn't in the game to lead, and I know I need to, I can step back and say, what are the thoughts racing through my mind? And some of the thoughts that have led to anxious, continued thoughts in my mind, literally, because I had the thought, I didn't need to believe it, let alone believe it, then act on it and engage in more thought and kind of spiral down. So, that kind of takes to the part two of that is when you recognize a thought, asking yourself, and to me, clouded thought is what impacts our ability to lead, right? Because we can't be present for others. We can't be walking into a room or walking into a warehouse, manufacturing facility, retail store, whatever it might be, and really be present and mindful that people are looking to you as a leader for some sense of affirmation and acknowledgement. And if my mind is totally clouded in thought, I don't even see those people then, right? I'm like on a beeline straight to the other end of the room that I need to get to. And I'm disrespecting people along the way. And so I need to kind of clear out those thoughts from my head. And, one of the things that I do is ask myself, what basis do I have to believe that thought is actually a fact and that it is true? And if I can't prove in my head that it's true right away, I know I can dismiss it. And literally, and I was trained to do this through various cognitive behavioral therapies, is to literally do nothing with that thought. And it's counterintuitive to me because I want to process every thought. I want to understand the genesis of it. Where did it come from? Why do I have it? What do I need to do with it? How am I going to get rid of it? And literally the ability to just dismiss a thought, kind of in one ear, out the other, and not getting stuck in your brain. It takes some training.
Yeah.
But those are some things that I do to really ensure my head is right for me to go lead and make an impact to others.
Yeah. No, I love that. So don't believe everything that you think. I was actually just doing that the other day. I had some thoughts in my mind. And again, I just you know what, that's a lie. It's just a plain lie. It's not real. It's just something that I've made up. So thank you for that. I've written that down. You guys write that down. Don't believe everything that you think. How important is impacting others' lives? I know it's important to you, right? Because this is why you're doing Encourage LLC. It sounds like you're investing in companies that you believe in that are impacting people's lives. But you talked about happiness, right? And happiness is this buzzword out there. It's like there's podcasts on how to be happy and articles, and there's classes on how to be happy, and right? It's just this crazy thing right now. How much of just being happy is about other people and just pouring in other people, impacting other people?
For me, I'm gonna go really lean into this one hard, Brett. It's all of it, right? I mean, self gratification, self happiness is pretty lonely, right? I mean, so for me, the thought of impacting others in a positive way, whether it is, somebody at a restaurant that is serving you, it is somebody at a store, it's somebody that you run into. I've watched others do it so much better than me. And I look at it, Brett, and I say, I got to be just like that person. I don't even know them, but I saw that and I was blessed that I got to see that interaction, and I need to bring more of that in. And so, I think that, when we talk today a lot about our authentic selves, I don't even know who my authentic self is. I really, really don't. Because I have grown over the years and been impacted by people that I love and respect in so many ways that I've brought that in. I brought their energy in, their happiness in. Even when I think about a greeting, I don't think years ago my greetings were happy enough. They weren't welcoming enough. They weren't engaging enough.
Yeah.
And I catch myself sometimes now even doing that. And then you see somebody, I have somebody that comes to mind and I say that she gives the best hellos. And it's like literally at hello, Jerry Maguire line, you had me at hello, right? That's how you want to impact people.
Yeah.
And, you could really start an interaction off right or wrong from that point. And so to me, impacting others and creating happiness or encouragement in them, that is really kind of what lights my fire and that gets me focused and excited.
I love that. I've been trying to train my brain every day is to take the focus off of myself. It's like, who am I going to serve today? Who am I talking to today that I can just serve, that I can just be about them and to make their day. And I was trying to train my son. My son's like 8 years old. We were at a restaurant the other day, and one of my favorite things is I think we don't get people's names very much anymore. So I'm trying to train my son is when the waitress comes up, the first thing that you say is, "Hey, hey, what's your name again? What's your name? And I'm just trying to train our kids that too, because I think it's so important, because then if you can get their name, people, right? It's the how to win friends and influence people. It's the best.
Yeah, Dale Carnegie.
It's the best word in the dictionary is their name. So, that's just a way. How do
Yeah.
you greet people? Like, is there a special thing that you do when you see me? Or number one, I sent you the outline yesterday for this podcast, and I loved your response. I'm so looking forward to talking to you. And I was like, wow, it's great. He's excited to be on the podcast. So thank you.
I really was, because you were very thoughtful with your message that you sent me. So it was like, this is pretty cool. For me, when I love when you just said about, your boys and the experience we were talking before the show began, that you did with your 15-year-old, that teaching our kids these things. My youngest is 22, and we were talking about a work correspondence. And Stone is just a very focused, driven, super proud of that kid in so many ways, academically, athletically, his heart, all those good things. But he was writing a work email as he's just starting his career. And I joked with him. He said, "Dad, what do you think of this?" And I said, "Dude, open your heart up. I mean, a little bit more." Yeah. I mean, that is an acceptable answer for sure. You could hit send, but do you want to hit send? Yeah. Open your heart up a little bit more. Let them know a little bit more of your personality and who you are. I know you're in accounting and finance, but they're people too on the receiving end of that, and they're in accounting and finance. And so, open your heart up. And I talked to my kids about that when they were younger, the boys especially. I would tell them that their sister, Bella, that was in between Beau and Stone, she's going to learn how to be treated by men in her life. Number one, by the way that I treat her. And number two, by the way her brothers treat her. And I said to them as little boys, fellas, God has put a big responsibility on you. And you have a big sister and a little sister here that, you are going to be teaching a lot to in terms of how she's going to look to boys and men in her life. And they were amazing to her and good examples to her. But it was very intentional that my wife and I talked to them about that. Yeah. And then when you mentioned about your 8-year-old with the greeting, that's so smart. I love that you're doing that. That's being a really good dad, because, otherwise, when they don't learn it young, to try to turn that on later in life, it is harder. And so much of what we can learn as a child that, the concept of the book, everything we needed to know, we learned in kindergarten, there's a lot of meaning to that. And so those greetings and the way you interact with people, I was probably a little too intense with my kids on that, because I really wanted to make sure that they showed respect constantly. And, I can be a little over the top at times, and I probably was on that topic.
No, I can too. So last question, because we're running out of time, Johnny, is just when I look at Encourage LLC, you talk about healthy living, leadership, investment, and then adoptions in there. A lot of times when I'm talking to business leaders or someone's on a podcast, they have some of these other things, but this is a little bit different. And I know you're very passionate about adoption. Can you just talk about why is that so important? I mean, it's so important that it is in your 4 departments of Encourage LLC, that it's just really on your heart. You think it is this just huge need. It's a huge blessing in your life, and other people, it can be a blessing in their life too. So talk to our audience that if someone, maybe it's not even on the radar right now, but how important is this to you and to them and to these children?
Well, certainly unplanned pregnancies are a hot topic today out there in the world. And, as somebody that is, strong in the belief of giving that pregnancy the opportunity for life. And I think about the life that my son has had as a really blessed life that could have been a really tough life. And so, there are thousands and thousands of couples out there that would love to adopt a baby. I know that a lot of people think about pregnancies and think this isn't the right time in my life, that I can't afford to be pregnant right now. I can't afford the medical bills. There's couples out there and we were one of them, that supported somebody during a pregnancy, paid for everything, even, paid rent, paid for food, to ensure that, she was taken care of during that time. So it wasn't a financial burden to her. That whole conversation out there today on life versus choice, that the topic of adoption isn't brought up enough. I I think both sides need to recognize that adoption is an option that's out there, that, it does not have to be a burden. That pregnancy does not have to be a burden financially, career-wise, in a lot of ways. And so many people end up keeping a child that their heart might not be into keeping. And that's okay if their heart isn't there. If they're not at a stage of their life where that baby coming in is truly a blessing and it is going to be just the greatest thing, there's other options that are out there. And I'm so thankful for those people that brought that baby to life. But know that the first decision in parenting can be what is best for this child. And if you don't have that stable environment, there is lines and lines of people out there that can't have children, or maybe have and still want to bring another baby into their home. And so I just want to increase the awareness of the conversation, because even today in the news and all that's going on in the talk of pro-life and pro-choice, you just don't hear about adoption enough as really that other option, that it's not abort or raise a child that you're not prepared to raise.
Right. No, I love that. I think that's so important. And this is a faith-based podcast too. And I just want to, people, and I myself is pro-life, and is, again, let's talk about adoption more. Let's put our money where our mouth is too, and let's step up to really help. So that's number one. Let's step up as Christians, as believers, to step up into that, talk about that more, bring more awareness around it. And is there a way that we can really help have adoption be easier? Because my wife, we've been talking about adoption, but just the complications of it sometimes versus an abortion, right? You look at the difficulties and the complexities of adopting versus aborting. It's just crazy. So again, can we help make adoption more available too, and just a little easier?
That's right.
Families, so.
We need to there's so many couples that want to do that. I've spent time in neonatal intensive care units and seen babies that have not had a parent visit them in weeks or months. And those nurses are getting those babies healthy to return them to the couple that haven't been able to visit. Maybe some for legitimate reasons. At times there's always that, but my experience, and it's a lot of experience in talking to those nurses, they're not legitimate reasons why someone's not there. Yeah. And it's lack of interest to be there. And then, adoption is a great opportunity for that couple, single mom, single dad, whatever, and then also for that baby. So, I think the thing there is that we got to increase the awareness and discussion. You can contact me on my website, and I'd love to engage in that dialogue. I do a lot of public speaking, and I'm honored to get into that topic more.
Awesome. Sounds good, Johnny. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today, guys. Guys, if you're listening to this, go check out Johnny's book, Life is Hard, But I'll Be Okay. I got it off Amazon. Is that the best place, Johnny?
Yes, Amazon right now, absolutely. I think it's Barnes & Noble's online as well. But and if you enjoy it, leave a review. Even if you don't enjoy it, that's okay too. I'd love to see the reviews. They're meaningful.
Sounds good. And check out your new organization, Encourage LLC, and your website, Johnny.
Encourage33.com.
Encourage33.com. We're going to put that in our show notes on our YouTube channel as well. So you guys check that out. That's a wrap. Johnny Sirpilla. Thanks, Johnny.
Appreciate you, Brett. You're making a difference out there. So thank you.